The BIS, Bank for International Settlements, or the central bank's central bank, also known as the club, BIS warns of perfect storm for global economy. To those hoping for a quick resolution to the US-China trade war, Axios has some bad news earlier today, reporting that the trade feud is likely to last much longer than originally thought, extending well into the second half of next year and perhaps beyond, experts say. According to Axios, the main reason for the protracted conflict is that neither side is prepared to appear politically weak at home, and both are ready to absorb economic pain. With few probable winners, the biggest losers would be farmers, users of steel, and consumers in the U.S. Uh, Manufacturers of all types will see business actually leave to neighbors like Vietnam and Malaysia and China, while dampening economic growth in both nations around the globe. However, as the general manager of the Bank of International Settlements, Augustin Carstens, warned, the greater risk is not how many points of GDP the rising tariffs will subtract from the US and China, but the growing danger to globalization itself. And on Saturday, Carstens delivered a scathing critique of rising protectionism and not so subtle rebuke to Trump's use of tariffs in trade talks to wring concessions from China, Mexico, and many other countries. Reversing globalization could increase prices, raise unemployment, and crimp growth, Carstens, the former head of Mexico's central bank, told fellow central bankers at the Jackson Hole Annual Economic Symposium. Additionally, higher tariffs could, actually just say would, drive up U.S. inflation and force the Fed to raise rates, driving up the dollar and hurting both U.S. exporters and emerging market economies in the process, Carstens said. Protectionism also threatens to unsettle financial markets and put a drag on firms' capital spending as investors take fright and financial conditions tighten. Take fright, or does he mean flight? These real and financial risks could amplify each other, creating a perfect storm and exacting an even higher price, the rotund central banker warned. It's also that heavy set. Here's what he looks like. Remember this guy? I think he was the guy that was a little nervous about cryptos. Remember this guy? Boss Hog himself. Know what I'm saying? Except instead of him, remember Boss Hog used to always laugh. I got you Dukes now. He would have to say, I got you Trumps now. No, Trump's got you, son. Alongside Carsten's speech, the BIS released a research paper titled Global Market Structures and the High Price of Protectionism. Because when you hear that word, that's everybody in the world saying Donald Trump is coming off with a protectionism stance. We want globalization. We want global everything. No borders, everything. He is saying, I want America first because I am America's president. And all of you guys should do the same thing for your respective countries, for your people. He's actually said that. So when you hear, oh, we did a little study about protectionism, it's their way of saying he's effing up our plans. We don't like it. So we need to let the whole world know where this could lead us to if he doesn't straighten up. But I got news for you. Donald Trump ain't going to be doing no straightening up, as you guys call it, or they call it. So this research paper titled Global Market Structures and the High Price of Protectionism, which that estimated that revoking NAFTA would mean a loss of GDP of $37 billion in Canada, $22 billion in Mexico, and $40 billion in the United States, with non-tariff trade barriers accounting for the lion's share of the losses. Wages would also fall across North America, the research found according to Reuters. The good news is that, as Bloomberg reported earlier, Mexican and U.S. negotiators have narrowed trade pact differences in recent days, And an agreement on bilateral trade may be announced as soon as tomorrow. Which, when did I actually send this to myself? I did send it today, so yeah, we're talking Tuesday, which tonight's Monday, but you know, they're talking Tuesday. Uh, with Canada expected to join trade talks once those have been resolved, but the overall future of NAFTA remains unclear. The bad news is that last week the US and China ended 2 days of talks on Thursday with little progress as their trade war escalated with activation of another round of dueling tariffs, dueling banjos, dueling tariffs. You have Donald Trump on one side playing a little banjo, China on the other side playing the guitar part. I had dueling tariffs. You kidding me? Who could have left out dueling banjos on that one? My brain wouldn't even let me continue reading. I had to stop dead in my tracks and do that. Lucky I don't have my harmonica here. I'd play that for you on there. It's out in the crypto cave. And I ain't walking out there right now. It's late. It's 11 o'clock at night. Not to do that. Love you, but I don't love you that much. Okay? Trade war escalated with activation of another round of dueling tariffs on $16 billion worth of each country's goods. According to Goldman Sachs, there's a 70% chance that Trump will levy an additional $200 billion in incremental tariffs over the next 2 weeks. What is odd is that despite the Bank for International Settlement's dire warning, Fed Chair Powell and other central bankers have largely stepped around the effect of rising trade frictions on the U.S. economy and monetary policy while signaling gradual rate hikes ahead. For now, they note that the impact of the tariffs themselves and related currency gyrations in some countries, including Turkey, are not slowing the U.S. economy and therefore do not require a response. Furthermore, while numerous business surveys indicate widespread concern about the impact of tariffs, the U.S. economy has yet to be rattled by protectionism. As a matter of fact, GDP 4.12%. What? Obama couldn't even crack 2%. And remember, at the end of his term, I did a video on this because I won't forget that. They revised the last 10 years. So 2 years of Bush and then 8 years of Obama. And the revision was terrible. So, where were we? However, speaking at the... Hold on. Oh. Okay, I'm tired. This is my last video for the day. I'm just too tired. I got more to do, but I'll do it tomorrow, the next day. However, speaking at the final panel in the 2-day meeting that examined market structure's impact on inflation and other metrics that central bankers follow closely, Carstens warned that central bankers ignore trade skirmishes at their peril. And as Reuters notes, coming from a fellow former central banker who is now head of the Bank for Central Bankers, the BIS, the message may resonate. Additionally, Carstens highlighted the potential catalyst that could unleash the perfect storm. He highlighted as the key risk resulting from the interaction of real and financial risks, namely the trillions in outstanding dollar-denominated debt, whereby a dollar shortage threatening to cripple international trade, and the growing risk of currency wars. So he writes, consider that non-U.S. banks provide the bulk of dollar-denominated letters of credit, which in turn account for more than 80% of this source of trade finance. The great financial crisis highlighted the fragility of fragile. Must be Italian. No, honey, I think that says fragile. Ah, yeah. Fragility of this setup, since non-U.S. banks depend on wholesale markets to obtain dollars. 10 years on, we should not forget how the dramatic fall in trade finance in late 2008 played a key part in globalizing the crisis. Any dollar shortage among non-U.S. banks could cripple international trade. On top of that, trade skirmishes can easily escalate into currency wars. Remember Joe Salente? Trade wars, currency wars, real wars. Joe Salente, man, you gotta love that guy. Although I hope they will not, he says. As we saw earlier with Mexico, imposing tariffs on imports tends to weaken the target country's currency. This depreciation could then be construed as a currency manipulation that seemingly justifies further protectionist measures. If currency wars break out, countries may put financial markets off limits to foreign investors or, on the other side, deliberately cut back foreign investment, politicizing capital flows. In addition, we must be mindful of long observed knock on effects from tighter U.S. monetary conditions, given the large stock of dollar borrowing by non banks outside the U.S., which has now reached $11.5 trillion. His conclusion: policymakers in advanced economies should not shrug off the growing evidence that abrupt exchange rate depreciations reduce investment and economic growth in emerging market economies. This has implications for everybody, in that weaker economic activity reduces demand for exports from advanced economies. In the long term, protectionism will bring not gain, but only pain, Karsten said, echoing a familiar talking point of establishment economists, of course, not just for the U.S., but for all of us. He may be right, but as long as the U.S. stock market continues to ignore the growing danger of this pain and hits new all-time highs, there is zero probability that the Trump administration will change course. And here's the good news. Should any of this stuff happen, start affecting things, and it don't affect us over here in this country, the rest of the world is affected. It's going to be positive for cryptocurrencies because those people are going to want to flee their country's devaluing dollar and problems and put their money into something that actually goes up. Cryptos. If the whole world goes to shit, we're all going to be wanting to put our money somewhere safe. Cryptos. Take care.